listening to episode 131 of Mitolife Radio. I'm Matt Blackburn, and today I'm interviewing Dennard Hegna of Arctic Chaga. Dennard and his family has been selling wild, harvested Alaskan chaga since 2012, and I first came across them at a booth at a cancer summit in Southern California and was really impressed by the quality of their chaga. And in the following years, I saw the rise of really cheap medicinal mushroom products on the market, like mushroom coffee packets, and all of these products that got the highlight at the health food stores and the conferences and the podcasts, big names, big companies. And I found out that their product was essentially watered down with starch. And I asked Dennard about that during this show. And he talks about what makes a good quality chaga, what makes his different, how to harvest it if you want to gather it yourself in the forest, how to brew it, how to store it, how to process it, all of that good stuff. This is packed with information about this powerful substance and its broad range of beneficial effects. So here we go. Here is Dennard Hegna. All right, we're here with Dennard Hegna. Welcome to the show.
All right. Thanks, Matt, for having me on here. Excited about this.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I actually found you guys at a booth at a cancer summit. It was probably 8 years ago. I was there with my friend Garrett, and we came across your booth and dosed us up on your tea. And I saw just the chaga there that just seemed like it was just radiating with energy. I was just like, this is the real deal, the real chaga. And ever since then, I've been following your brand, Arctic Chaga, and eventually we connected and hit it off, and here we are. So how did you get into this whole thing and interested in chaga?
Well, yeah, that's great that, you had me on the show, and I'm glad you stopped by the booth. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the booth, but I heard a lot of good stories, and Garrett, our friend Garrett, too. Also, it's funny, we've done a lot of growth since then. Did I ever think chaga would take me to the place it's took me now? And not only took me, but some of the people that we've touched. It was funny how I got started. I've always been kind of, did I always live by the golden rule of consuming what I need to consume in my body to give me the maximum benefits of my health? No, when you're young, you really don't think of it as growing up in a general store. My folks had a general store, so it was like a lot of soda pop and candy bars, And so we was out moose hunting with a friend of mine, and I just got back up to Alaska. I was in California, and he says, let's go moose hunting. So I went out moose hunting, and he started talking about chaga, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, it's a fungus that grows off the birch trees. Well, the first thing that popped in my mind is they have these polypores. They're birch fungus or shell fungus, which is very good for cancer also. And that's one. He's like, no, it's not that. It's it almost looks like a burnt chunk of coal on a birch tree. And he's like, doing the old arm signals. He says, well, blueberries are here in antioxidants. And he puts one hand way up in the air. He says, chaga is this high in antioxidants, like 80 times higher than blueberries. That caught my attention. Okay. I'm like, okay, it's got to be healthy if it's that much more, because the Alaskan blueberries are higher than any other blueberry out there on the market, just because of the harsh environment. So we was looking, and I kept pointing out the shell fungus, and he's no, that's not it. So we didn't see none that day. So it was about 2 weeks later, I was at this retreat down here at the Chena Lakes, and, massive birch trees around, fungi growing all over, lion's mane, turkey tail. And I'm like, okay, I need to get out there and look for some chaga. And I ran across this piece out there, and it's like, okay, Now I find it. Now what do? So first thing I did is, grab the phone and start Googling chaga, why shouldn't I drink this? And what I found out is I could not find nothing negative at that time about chaga. And that was not what I was looking for. I was looking for something, why shouldn't I drink this? And how to brew it. And there was just things all over the place. It was nothing consistent about it. So, we had a camper there. So I just took a couple of chunks and I threw it in a pot of water, put it on the campfire, and I boiled the heck out of it. I mean, it looked like Mobil 1 motor oil, it's been burnt. And I says, well, here goes. And I tasted it and I was like, wow, it was no worse than like a strong coffee at that time, even as strong as I made it. And I'm like, okay, we're on to something here. But what really got my attention was all the benefits that I was reading about the Siberia chaga when I started this company. And it's been life-changing ever since. And what really kicked it off is when I started studying more about the Siberia. Okay, why does Siberia chaga higher than any other chaga? And it was because of the cold weather. And not only of the cold weather, the more extreme temperature change, the better the quality of the chaga. Now, don't get me wrong. Is all chaga bad? No. But there is some, just like fruits and everything else. Different environments contribute to the more benefits that a certain plant fungus have. So I'm like, okay, we're talking about extreme. All right. Now I live in Fairbanks, Alaska. If you want to see extreme, just come up here any given year and spend 1 year. You'll see from 60 below to 90 above. That's 150-degree temperature change. I've actually seen it 100 here, but I won't exaggerate. So if you're talking about 150-degree temperature change, there's not too many places on this planet that go through that. So I'm thinking to myself, well, if Siberia's got good chaga, so I believe we got good chaga. So not at that point I did any testing, but I started giving it to some of the elders and started drinking it myself. And there was a lady that came to me. She was sent to me, and she had some thyroid problems, and she had a growth on her neck, and she wouldn't. She. I never even seen her because she would not even get out of her house. It was that bad. She says, "I look like Elephant Man," and I was like, "Wow." I says, "Well, from what I read and what I've studied so far, and this is just a month into this, I says." Felt like the snake oil salesman, but I wasn't going to sell her nothing. It wasn't about selling stuff. It was about helping the lady. So I made some tincture and I gave her a bottle of tincture and I gave her some powder. They met me over at this parking lot. Her son did, and he took it home to her. She called me in 3 days and she said, Dennard, as soon as I started drinking this, within the first 4 or 5 hours, I could feel something going on in my neck. And I was like, oh, is it placebo or, what's going on or whatever. Within 2 weeks, she was confident enough to leave her house. And within a month and a half, she was back driving the school bus again. And you see her today and you would never know that she had that growth on. Oh, she's a firm chaga believer. And that is probably the first launch of a testimony that I seen where it was that was touching, and I was like, okay, we're on to something here. So I sent some off to get it tested at Brunswick's laboratories in, I want to say it's in Maine. And our chaga, and antioxidant levels are all over it. It depends what tests they do and who tests it, so are they so accurate? But this was the company that I found that a lot of companies went to for their testing. And at that point, we was at over 2,300 antioxidants per gram, which is like almost 800 higher than what Siberia was. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And is that the ORAC?
Yeah, that's the ORAC. It was an ORAC 5 test,
Mm.
And it tests 5 different antioxidants. I don't have it in front of me, but one thing it was high in, and that was SODs. Was the highest one.
remember that's what you guys said at the booth when I met you guys. You said
Oh
it's
yeah,
the highest chaga and SOD. And
yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Yeah, and before we started recording, we were talking about antioxidants, and SOD is one of the three major endogenous antioxidants that our body makes, along with glutathione peroxidase and catalase. And everyone's all about trying to boost these things, and that's part of it. And I think another part is like taking out the things that are, the heavy metals and all the things that are harming the system. Um, that's awesome though,
yeah.
and
And
when you,
that SOD is a powerhouse, and it's that enzyme that that helps us protect us from the free radicals, and it kind of works as it's like an adaptogen. It adapts to what our body needs. You take the sea turtle, tortoise, uh, very lives hundreds of years old, 150, 200 years old, very high in SODs. We are high in SODs ourselves. And as we age, we start to lose them SODs. So does chaga replenish them? There's all kinds of stuff over the internet, but I don't go so much by, the lab this, lab that, because there's so much promoting, so many lies out there that, just to make everybody's, you'll take a lot of the companies that try to make their company more beneficial and try to make it equal to other places. But, I have seen from the people that have used our chaga where they'll try other chaga and they always come back. But the SODs is the kicker, and it it from my experience, the trees are very high in SODs also. So I'm thinking that's kind of where it gets its nutrients from the tree. So
that makes sense. Yeah, and I'm thinking of all these cheap brands that cropped up over the years, selling mushroom powders and extracts. And I often tell people, usually at your health food store, you can't find the good brands.
yeah,
My experience has been the real good quality supplement products and health products you have to get online, just because the health food store is kind of like mainstream alternative health. They're not, they're just promoting all the things that everyone's promoting. And a lot of these mushroom powders are cut with starch or mycelium, right? And they're kind of like a drug dealer
yes,
cutting the product.
100%. And I travel to the Asian countries a lot, and so I was actually in China, and as we know, speaking of China, everybody puts a red flag up, but they're so more far advanced when it comes to extracts, mushrooms, fungus, natural medicines than we've even thought about here in the Western world. And so I kind of did my research because, like you said, a lot of these health food companies that are selling products over the counter, it's it's all about opportunists. I want to say, and I can mention a few names, and they are big companies and they are on the shelves everywhere. But they'll have a high level of polysaccharides, but they won't list their beta glucans. And when I was doing the research, it's about the beta glucans, not the polysaccharides, because starches will make the polysaccharides test higher. So, they put the fillers in there and then you don't know really what you're getting. So, when I was over in the Asian countries, I went to some of these old farms that harvest, and grow their own lion's mane, turkey tail, and they dry them on the roofs of these little cabins and stuff like that. It was really, it's like, okay, I could get into having these people furnishing me high quality product because I know it's not going through that, you know, production phase where it's about opportunities and putting money in people's pockets. It's like I want the quality, not the quantity.
That's awesome. And polysaccharides can be beneficial, but we're more after the beta glucans, right?
Yes, 100%. Don't get me wrong. There's polysaccharides are good for the body, but it's getting the right ones, the right source. Mhm.
hmm That makes sense. Yeah, I actually have you sent me some of your mushroom
That is a
powder 5,000.
powerhouse. Everybody
Yeah.
that loves it, they love that too. And when they see it, they're like, "Oh, take a tablespoon of that," and it's like, well, when you start doing your research on the beta glucans, it'll tell you, you know, your average dose should be from 100 milligram to 500 milligram. daily. And if you're battling something, use it 2 to 3 times a day. So if they're selling you a capsule that's got 10 or 15% polysaccharides, I mean beta glucans, and they're saying take 2 capsules, well, you're only getting about, 20 milligrams of beta glucans. So how can you get it? So that was when I designed that product, it was like, okay, we're going to boost up the beta glucan levels and the levels of the body where they need to be, not sit there and sell capsules where people's not going to see a difference. So that has been a game changer, in our one of our product lines, and people have enjoyed it.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of my goals with this show and interviewing you is getting people off of like the just mainstream mushroom coffee blends, which are just garbage and poor quality, and onto product that they can actually feel, which has been my experience. Like I used to think medicinal mushrooms didn't work because I was disillusioned because the products I was taking they weren't strong. And then I tried a few brands. I was like, oh wow, lab tested. I could actually feel it. Like especially lion's mane. I mean, if you take 3 grams of real lion's mane, you'll feel the nootropic effect.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yes, I love Lions Mane. Lions Mane is a powerhouse. And what's good about them is they all work together with chaga. Chaga is like the host, and when you start adding these other mushrooms with them, it just intensifies the whole feeling and the whole effect of benefiting these together. And like in that pack there, them are the five top medicinal mushrooms, that we're working with right now. When you talk about the chaga coffee, we do have a chaga coffee, and it was kind of it help to bring them people into us that are on the board that are trying different coffee mixes, that are not the quality, and helping them get weaned off that, because I'm not a real big fan of coffee, but if somebody don't want to get off their coffee, we that blend that we use is about a 60-40 blend, where it's fully 40% coffee, 60% the mushroom in there. And then we can start to wean people off, and get them on, because I'll tell you what, nothing's better than taking a nice fresh cup of chaga and putting a tablespoon of that mushroom power 5 into the beginning of the day. You feel a difference. Like I said, I'm 57 years old, and you know how my schedule is, Matt. It's not an 8-hour day. It's not a 10-hour day. It's from 7 in the morning till 10 at night, because this is a family business, and we work hard to bring people the quality that they deserve.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I've had friends say that they brew their coffee in the chaga tea, which I guess if you do a French press or a pour over, that's possible. I have a Breville espresso machine, so that probably wouldn't work. But I want to try that someday. Just put your coffee grounds in the chaga tea. That'd be like
Oh yeah,
might have too much energy.
I help sometimes part time at the welding shop, and my boss is all about his coffee. Coffee, coffee, coffee. And he comes up with the coffee pot. And he's like, got chaga in there, when he should be drinking it. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, yes. So I'll put one of the large tea bags, and I'll put a few of the chunks in the bottom. It's the old style Mr. Coffee Maker, in the bottom. Put them in the pot, and then put your coffee grounds on top and let it brew through. Don't take the chaga out the next morning. Just replace your coffee grounds, and that'll keep giving you that chaga coffee, and it is really good. That the chaga kind of intensifies, and the caffeine effect, and the caffeine kind of intensifies the chaga effect. So it's like a double whammy. I have a friend here that just come from Oklahoma, and we made a really strong brew of chaga, and he's trying to get off the caffeine, and he was like, "Whoa, I think I overdid it today."
Yeah, I've done that many times, just stacking the right things, and it's like, okay, I'm like at a 12 out of 10 of energy levels, and
Right, right.
um, yeah, and melanin too. I mean, there's so many things in chaga, right? Like the betulinic acid,
Methylenic
melanin.
acid, yes. The melanin is probably the outer edge of the chaga is 40% melanin, which is very good for the skin. And not only for the skin, with all these the protection that the melanin could do for electronic fields and stuff. There's a lot of research going on right now about that. That Carl Martin, that he was part of, 10 years ago, a company called Chaga University, and he has a YouTube video out there. I've been talking and working with him a little bit, and he's talking about how, the protection of, we got all this G5 running around us and, cell phones and everything's on Wi-Fi. These electronic fields we got going through through the air and stuff. What's going to be the long-term effect of them? We don't know. We don't know because they've not been out that long. What's going to be passed down to our kids and our grandkids? And he was really pushing the chaga and explaining to me the benefits of the melanin in the chaga to help us with this. So I'm anxious to get more into research and learning more about this field. Like I said, I don't have a big field in the background of medicine and things. This is just things that I've learned, like the farm boy.
Well, I think that's awesome. Yeah, it's all good. Now, and below I'll post a link to articles that I find. Like I have one pulled up here from the Basic and Clinical Pharmacology and Toxicology Journal, and the article is Pharmacological Properties of Melanin and Its Function in Health. And just this one aspect of chaga, like photoprotective, anti-inflammatory, immunomodulatory, radioprotective, hepatoprotective, so protects the liver, gastrointestinal protective, and helps with the glycemic balance. So just there's so many components in chaga that are doing so many different things, and that's probably
it's amazing. It's amazing when you see this, just a plain piece of conch, that looks like a piece of burnt charcoal and wood matter together, have so many benefits. But when you start looking at the environment that it's grown around, I'm a firm believer that our higher power, mine is God, that things were put in different areas in different climates for us to consume, to live in that type of environment. Because the environment that I live in up here is not made for the average person. When you get no sunlight, during the winter, when it's 60 below zero, cabin fever comes in, you got to get out of here. And then when you flip it over in the daytime, in the summertime where it's light 24 hours, I mean, at 11 o'clock at night, the sun's still high up in the sky. These play a lot of stress factors in people, especially if your body's not adapt to it. And I think that's the adaptogen part of the chaga, is to help us to adapt to this climate.
That makes sense. Yeah, I'm here in northern Idaho, and it doesn't get as extreme as where you are, but
you feel it.
But I feel it. Yeah, and we actually found a chaga on the property here, and I don't think we talked about too much. It's a parasitic fungus on birch trees, right? So you only find it on birch, right?
Yeah, it does grow on some elm trees, I think, and stuff down there, but I've not seen it on different trees because, I'm kind of here to Alaska. We do have some that look similar to chaga that grow on the aspen trees. A lot of people send pictures. Is this chaga? And I'm like, no, it's just a knot of wood. But I tell you what, it looks just like it, until you see what kind of tree it is. But that is kind of what I do. There's a lot of speculation on how chaga actually grows on the tree, and I was talking to Cass Ingram here when we first started this company, and I always called him the chaga guru, or whatever. He wrote the book out, The Cures in the Forest. A few things have changed since that in his book, and I was listening to one of his podcasts and stuff. But how Cassie, you've had him interviewed on the shows and stuff like that. What a remarkable guy, he's kind of like we do. We kind of go against the grain a little bit, you know what I mean? Not so much as promoting as we are as like, okay, give me a reason for this, explain this. You can't explain it. And a lot of people think chaga, the spores fly through the air and land in the tree and start growing the chaga. But if that was the case, we have areas where people go out and clean the birch bark off the trees and make birch baskets. If that was the case where the spores would go through the air and get in the cuts of the trees, them areas would be filled with chaga. That's my intake, is that, is it set in stone? No, but that is my my feedback on that. These spores are not going to fly through the air and land in a cut of the tree and go. So what I have seen, chaga starts from the inside of the tree. All right. So the spores get into the water system or through the mycelium, because when you look at the forest up here in Alaska, it's just one mass of mycelium. It's it's like a floating cushion with the moss and everything growing there. It's like a network. And the spores, I take it when I was talking to Cass, go through the root system. All right. Or the mycelium gets in the root system. And a lot of the trees will have chaga, but they will not be exposed on the outside of the tree yet. But now, if that tree gets a scrape or a scratch or something like that, the chaga will start to heal the tree. And as it heals the tree, it starts sucking the nutrients out of the tree. It takes about 5 years for it to grow on the birch tree. Chaga is dormant after it's about 40 degrees centigrade. Okay, it don't grow much. Well, excuse me, about 40 degrees Fahrenheit. It does not grow. So we have a very low season on growth periods up here. Chaga. You get in other areas, chaga becomes grows quite large. But we was at a event. It might have been that same event where you first ran into chaga, and Dr. Cassingham there, and he kept looking over at Red and seeing this chaga sitting on the table, and he came over and he talked to him. He picked up this chaga, and he says, "Where's this chaga come from?" And he said, "Alaska, North Pole, Alaska." And he picked it up. He says, "I have been all over the world and done all kinds of research on chaga." And when he grabbed our piece, he says, "This is the most dense chaga I have ever felt." And when you take, a 3 month growth period, it takes a lot out of that tree. But that is my whole intake. The spores go through the root system to heal the tree. As it heals the tree, it sucks the nutrients out of the tree, and it's got a chaga on the exterior of the tree. And then we harvest it. Because when you find chaga, there's usually more than one or two pieces around there. So, if it was floating in the air on spores, there would be a lot of chaga, not just a few places. Yeah.
So is it a parasitic relationship or is it a mutually beneficial relationship with the birch?
I think it's more of a parasitic.
Mm-hmm.
The birch tree. No, from what I've read, it does. It They really don't know. It kind of helps the birch tree. As a birch tree sitting there growing on it, it's still growing. But
Okay.
to me, it's a fungus. It's in the tree. And like I said, let's go back to the God thing or whatever. An old timer told me, he says, "You have this beautiful white tree with this big black chunk of coal on it, and it's a symbol for us. Hey, you need to be drinking this, okay?" But what you will notice as you're walking through the forest, we only harvest live chaga. As you're walking through the forest, you will come up to chaga pieces that where the tree is broken off. So what it does, it's like a cork type texture inside the middle of the tree. And so if the wind comes up after the chaga's been there for quite a few years, the wind comes up and snaps the tree off. So, you know, uh, so in a way, I would say it does kind of attack the tree, but in other parts, I've seen large pieces of chaga on thriving birch trees. My daughter picked one, and looking at the size of it, it was like three basketballs the size of this birch tree, and it was humongous. This is the biggest one I ever seen up here. And what was funny is she just come back up here, and that was her first tree to climb to get the chaga. All right. I was teaching her how to climb the trees to get the chaga. We won't talk about the words that was said, okay, as she was learning, but I'll tell you what, she made it up that tree, and it was about 65 feet in the air.
Wow.
And we got a picture of her on our website or whatever she was up there harvesting. Yeah, she's a real Alaskan girl, that's for sure. So,
That's amazing. Yeah, you made me think of the wood wide web, like the underground mycelial network. I think it's like an insane
oh,
mass underground,
yeah,
and I've heard it said that nature God, it's like the intelligence where it might seem like a parasitic infection, but it's actually cleaning up the forest as it needs
correct.
to. So it's sending up these funguses through the
Cor-
ground, not only chaga, but hundreds or thousands, maybe, right? To
Oh
bring
yes, I can't
balance to the
wait till
forest.
you come up here, especially come up here in the summer. Idaho has a good network of forest. When you get out there and look at just all the things that are out there growing. We're not so much like South America where everything's poisonous or watch what you do. Everything up here is we have amanitas and stuff like that, but most of the stuff up here growing on the forest is very beneficial, and it is a web. It's for sure. Mhm.
Yep. Yeah. And it's an intelligent system. And I forget if it was you or someone else told me when you're harvesting chaga, don't take it from a dead tree, like a dead log
Yeah,
on the ground, right?
right. Now, because it's done lost its nourishment. Now,
Hmm.
now, just because it's on that dead tree and that dead log, don't mean there's no benefits on that tree. Take the birch bark off. The birch bark is phenomenal. Okay, that's where the chaga gets a lot of its benefits from, is the birch bark. It's higher in antioxidants than actually chaga. So when we do ours, a lot of people will clean their chaga and clean their birch bark off their chaga. We actually leave them on there, to a certain extent, so it's not over more birch than tree than chaga. People are wanting chaga, and I don't want to put out a product like that unless people are educated. But we'll be doing one with 50-50 chaga, 50-50 birch bark, blend or whatever. Because the birch tree has a lot of health, a lot of health benefits with it. Not only with the birch bark, but also the birch buds, and the birch sap. In the winter, in the summer, up here in the springtime, we tap the trees and get the birch water out of it, and drink the birch water and stuff. So.
That's awesome. And it's a good fire starter, right? The birch bark. So,
Oh yes,
yeah.
birch bark. So's chaga. No, so's chaga. The first time I had was working on when I was putting this company together. We had some grinders and some. Was trying to figure out how to grind the chaga, and it went through some serious
Mhm.
grinders and wood chippers and trying to figure out what worked best. And it was like if it was spinning too fast, it would start an amber, and the next thing you know, here you got 30 pounds of chaga that just went up in flames. So.
That's
But
interesting.
that's what the old timers used to do, and they would take a stone and they would carve a hole in the stone. Okay, they would put their ambers of the chaga in there. They would cap it, and that's how they carried their fire with them.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and you made me think there's a difference between harvesting chaga and processing it in mass versus if you're just a person like me, just getting a little bit of pine pollen,
Yep.
harvesting small amounts. I liked Arthur Haynes had a great series on YouTube regarding like chaga conservation, and
Mm-hmm.
his big point in those videos was that people were over harvesting chaga because it's become like a fad over the last, superfood gurus promoting it and stuff over the last 10 years, 15 years, but they're using too much in the brew. And so his big point was it's better to expose more surface area. So don't put chunks in, like ground it down as small as you can with like a hammer or a mallet or something. And it only takes like a really small amount to make a gallon, right? Like it's less than
Right,
most people think.
right, exactly, and that's kind of when I started doing first started doing the company. When you go back to harvesting, I'm going back to the harvesting part too. So if we have some listeners out there that want to go harvest their own chaga, you know, go out to a nice area. We get away from all the roadways because the heavy metals from the car exhaust and stuff like that. Because trees absorb the oxygen, things, heavy metals. So if you're out not only with chaga, with any other dandelion root, things like that, get away from the roadways. Get out in the forest, okay? And you don't have to go that far out, another 500 to 1,000 feet, because the trees, But if you come across a piece of chaga, go ahead. The best thing is just a hammer and a chisel and pop it off there. Always try to leave a little bit of chaga on there because it will continue to grow. Don't go deep into the tree or you're going to, hurt the tree. And you can come back 5 years later and get that piece again. It will regrow. But uh, but going back to the amount to use, yes, and that's why we did a lot of ground, but where people get confused is they'll get online and they will start reading about the chaga and companies, and people will tell them, don't buy ground chaga because it contains fillers and things like this. Well, this was what was going back in the Asian market and the Korean markets and stuff like that. So what that's done is carried over to the West, but I don't really know too many chaga companies that put in fillers, but you never know. We get ours tested, on a regular basis. And when you're buying from Arctic chaga, you get 100% pure Alaska Arctic chaga. You know what you're getting. And then what's the amount to use in your own cooker or whatever like that. I found with the 24-gram tea bag, the large tea bag that I do, it is the most beneficial. We grind it, we got it in the tea bag, or you can use the grounds. We started in the grounds. To me, I like the grounds because I love ingesting it, but about a third of a cup to a gallon of water, and that third of a cup will make 2 to 3 gallons of tea. Because the longer the chaga soaks, the more SODs it will continue to pull out. It will continue to pull out SODs for up to 4 days.
Wow. And you brought up an interesting point, and this was a few of the questions that listeners sent in, was about consuming it as a food. Because I know there are companies that sell like chaga capsules where it's just you're actually ingesting the chaga powder. That freaks me out because isn't it like eating wood essentially?
Yeah. Now, Dr. Cass, I was talking to him, and there's some research coming back on it. Is that it was always meant to say that don't eat the powder of the chaga, don't consume it, things like that. But now that is starting to take a turn. So we do what we call a micro blend. It's a really fine powder that we run through this really big grinding machine, and it comes out to like baby powder fine. And so I have a lot of people, and this is some of the testimonies, they swear by it, and they will take in like a teaspoon of that, or half a tablespoon, and they will put it like in their oatmeal or their smoothies, and they see a lot of the benefits like that. And like if we go back to the Mother Nature, the way it was put on Earth, why couldn't we take it like that? I always like to do the tea extract, but also consume the grounds in it also. So now you're not only getting the extract, you're also getting what's in the grounds, because chaga works it's kind of like you remember the old DOS computer where you had the auto exec bat files and configuration system files. If you didn't have everything in order, it wouldn't work. And I kind of take chaga as like the computer with that system in it. If you don't have it all in order, it's not going to work very well. But regardless, whether you boil it, whether you consume it, as a powder, we like to keep ours, under 160-degree temperature change, 160-degree temperature. Don't boil it. Are you going to get some of the benefits? But yeah, you're going to destroy a lot of the enzymes, by making it too hot. You'll see people on there boil a chaga. No, we like to keep it at a low temperature. But yeah, he's 100% right. People are wasting. There's a lot of wasted chaga out there, not only in their usage, but also in their harvesting. I get people that call me up all the time. Hey, are you buying chaga? Are you buying chaga? Well, we don't buy from everybody that calls us up. We have a strict quality control where we can take it from where we pick it in the forest all the way down to, I can track it all the way to your place in Idaho. And that's kind of like what we want to keep, because, I just don't buy chaga. People calling me up, hey, chaga, I got 50 pounds of chaga in the warehouse. 50 pounds of chaga in my garage. Will you be interested in buying it? No, I don't know what's in that garage. I don't know what's in that backpack that he carried it in. Could it be 100%, okay? Of course. I don't want to, knock him for not trying or whatever, but we're getting all these people out there that think they're going to be the next, chaga king and make a killing of harvesting chaga for Arctic chaga, when it's like, we don't want people to over harvest. If you want to go out and harvest your own, perfect. Don't use no more than what you're harvesting. It makes me mad when people go out there and harvest 20 or 30 pounds. Well, you're not going to, use maybe a few pounds a year. And depending on how big your family is, let it continue to grow on the tree. Why take it if you're not going to use it right now?
That's a good point. And you reminded me, this was like, I think 5 years ago, I bought chaga chunks off of eBay or a
Uh-huh.
website like that. And it was moldy when I got it. And I think it was harvested in Maine or somewhere on the East Coast. But that was kind of another nail in the coffin for me, or another realization or the last straw to say, oh, wow, I mean, quality really does matter. And the benefit of buying it from a company that does lab tests like you do and stuff is you know what you're getting. You're not just buying it from Joe Schmo that, like you said, probably stored it in a moldy place
Correct.
for who knows
Correct.
how long.
It was funny that you brought up that you ordered some chunks online on eBay or whatever. I actually was doing some research at the University of Fairbanks, and we can get into that a little later on in the program. But I was ordering chaga from different companies to compare, you know, and I ordered some of their cheap tea bags, and it was one of the first chaga companies out there, and they took a big hit by FDA for making all kinds of claims on the internet. But when I ordered the tea bags, I opened the tea bags up and I could smell mold. And I'm thinking, okay, we have this top chaga company actually putting out, you know, moldy product, and it kind of was like disappointed in a way because that told me, the pride was not into their quality as it was in their pocketbook. We have a 1,500 pound dehydrator that I can dehydrate 1,500 pounds of chaga and at one time. So we try to harvest in the winter so it stays frozen all the way until it gets here. And then when it gets here, we chop it up in small chunks. We'll put it in the dehydrator, and it will sit in there for 24 to 36 hours till we know it's 100% dry. Because I've had problems with, when I was first starting, this was a learning curve. And that's what I found out. To keep the mold content down, harvest in the winter, get it dehydrated as soon as you can. When you're out there harvesting in the summer, uh, it don't get it chopped up as quick as you can, in nice size, quarter size chunks, so it will dry faster. You could dry it with a fan. Don't get me wrong. You don't need a $12,000 dehydrator. You can do it with a fan, but just don't keep it in an airtight bag. If there's any questions about it, leave it in the poke some holes in your baggie. Mhm.
Interesting. But once it's fully dry, then you can put it in an airtight bag and it should
Yeah,
last
exactly,
a while.
exactly. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
chaga is so stable. You've seen that when
Mm-hmm.
I send you. You've had no problems with the stuff that I've sent you. It's stable. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. And I had heard on YouTube, I think someone said, like I have a chunk by my fireplace. Would that be a good place? Like if I just have a huge chunk, and just keeping it by the wood stove pipe, is that kind of a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
strategy too?
that's fine. As long as it's not getting so hot that you can't touch it, where it's destroying
Mm-hmm.
all the enzymes in it and stuff. So, yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's perfectly fine. You
Okay.
know.
Yeah, I just figured that's like a eco or sustainable way of
Yeah,
like naturally
exactly.
dehydrating.
You just kind of turn back the clock a little bit. What did the caveman use? What the Indians? What the Siberians use? What did they have? Did they have our condominium in New York? Or no, air, air. Let it get air. If there's any question, let it get air.
Mhm. That's awesome. Well, you want to jump into some questions, Dennard? We have quite a few here, and could get through some of
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can answer them. If I get difficulty, you can help me. All right.
them. Sounds good. Let's see. So we had a lot of questions about the correct process for making the tea from chunks, or the best way to brew chaga chunks. And you kind of mentioned you really don't want to get above, is it 160 Fahrenheit?
Yeah, like
When you-
about 150, 157 in that area. Anyways, 150, 160 is perfect.
Okay. And that's for, is it like bone broth? Because that was my understanding that slow and low, like
Low and
kind of
low,
pour.
chaga has a cell on the outside, and it's called chitin. And we got to break that chitin cell down and to get the benefits out of it. And a lot of people say, "Oh, you can't do this, can't do that," or take it with a grain of salt. I know what has worked for us. I know what has worked for our consumers, and what I do shows, a lot of shows and events, and when I tell people to prepare it like this, they always come back and they're like, "Yes, this is perfect. I can see a change in the way I felt." And that was kind of where, like, the large tea bag we have, or if you're out there harvesting yourself or you don't like the tea bag, you get the grounds, put a third of a cup, in a crock pot, fill it up full of water. It don't matter if it's low. I mean, if it's a gallon of water, a gallon and a half, just put it in the crock pot, put it on low. You can check your temperature of your crock pot, because I had one crock pot that actually was almost boiling on low. But, kind of look at it. And what's really cool is them Samivores or whatever that has a thermostat on them. I have one of them. I call it the ultimate Chaga cooker, where you can actually control the thermostat of the Chaga, or even a slow cooker, something where you can do it. I had talked to a guy, he was doing it in a conventional oven, and he had the thermometer that would go inside the conventional oven, and he would set it his timer, and it was a fabulous idea. So you can set your temperature which one. I always recommend letting it cook. I like to do it before I go to bed. Let it cook all night, like a pot of beans or like your bone broth. Let it cook all night. I wake up in the morning, I shut it off, I'll enjoy a cup, but go ahead and continue to let that chaga soak. All right, don't strain it out right then. Let it soak. It's not going to be like other teas where it's going to get rancid on you. And how you do make a sun tea and 2 days later it's rancid. It's like, whoa, what's growing on there? Chaga is not like that. Now, don't get me wrong. If you got a house full of mold and moldly bread laying on the counter and stuff like that, them spores are going to get in there and you're going to see mold. But I've had chaga sitting on a good clean counter for 2, 3, 4 weeks, and no issues and no mold. Now, after and that works out the best. And we do have a YouTube video that walks you step by step through the process on preparing the chaga too.
That's awesome. But yeah, I like how you explained it. It's definitely not rocket science, and you don't even have to accurately measure the water, because you could just keep filling it up. And
that and the chaga, just people they try to overthink it. I'm not judging nobody. Don't overthink it. Brew you some chaga. If you boil it, don't throw it away. It's not bad. You're just not getting everything with it. Just get chaga in the body. Okay, you get chaga in the body every day, and you'll feel a difference. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my other experiences with chaga I wanted to bring up is at my first cabin in Big Bear, California. I had a crock pot going, I think it was for 6 to 9 months. It was a good run. And I just kept adding chunks to it and refilling it with water.
That's what I do.
and and I think I must have had mold, because this was actually when I was hosting retreats, and I gave it to the attendees, and they were going to, especially one guy was on the toilet for a good amount of time. And chaga can have that effect, right, if someone's constipated, but I think this was like an overdrive, because it gave me loose stools too. So it clicked, and I was like, okay, I should probably dump it all, clean it out. Because I don't know, 6 months to a year is probably a little too long to keep the crock pot going with the same batch.
Yeah. I'll keep it going. I'll just keep adding to it, but not for 6 months. So I don't know what what kind of chemistry project he's working on there, but it might have not been. It might have been getting so potent where chaga has a detoxifying, a cleansing effect to you. If you're drinking chaga on a daily basis, I'm a firm believer in making a bowel movement, 2 to 3 times a day. How many times a day do we eat? We eat 3 times a day. Why don't we have a bowel movement 3 times a day? We have to get rid of them toxins in our body, and that's what is good about chaga, is it will keep them toxins flushing through our body. So
that's a good point. Yeah, I just read a post by a guy I had on my podcast multiple times, Adam Bergstrom, another fan of bowel movements daily. I think he recommends like 8 to 9 or something, but he was saying,
really,
he was saying a lot of bowel movements like cure 90% of IBS cases or something. All these intestinal disorders people are dealing with. But you mentioned you did research at the University of Fairbanks. I wanted to ask you about that. What were you studying?
Yeah, what it was pretty funny, and if you Google Eciligan, it's C Illigan, it's C
Hmm.
period Elegan. It's like a worm. It's like a parasite, round worm, not a parasite. It's like a little round worm. Uh, get to the beginning of the story. When I first started Arctic Chaga, the newspaper did a nice article with me in Fairbanks, Alaska, on the News Miner, and the Fairbanks biology department at the university called me. They have a very awesome uh, lab and program up here. Barbara Taylor was up here. I think she's at USC right now, but she loves chaga. And they says, "Hey, Dennard, it's wonderful that you're doing this. You know, we're up here at the university. We have done a few lab tests on chaga up here, and just giving me kudos on doing something with chaga. And they're like, chaga is amazing, the benefits." And I'm like shocked. You know, I'm new at this. You know, and they invited me up to their lab up there, and they had these little dishes, and she was explaining, which was sound like, you know, half the stuff that she was talking about was like in foreign language to me, you know, to keep it simple. Now I'm a little more educated on it, but they had this silicon, and it was in little petri dishes or whatever. And this little worm is very, and you can Google it, you know, E. silicon, and it has like reproducing system. It's like not male or female, but it has reproduction systems to it. It has nervous system. In other words, there was a Nobel Prize won on this little worm, is because it picks up a lot of diseases that we can too as humans. So they can give it Alzheimer's, they can give it Parkinson's, they can give it Huntington's disease. You know, they can give it a list of diseases, and it will respond similar to like we do as a person. So she's like, "Here, look into these microscopes or whatever like that." Turned around. She looked at me. She says, "When we give it chaga, you know, it has a lifespan of about 2 weeks." She says, "With these, when we give it chaga, it lives longer." So that was pretty crazy feeling there when she told me that. She's like, "There is definitely something here," but they did a bunch of tests with blueberries and crowberries and bogberries and stuff, and chaga was in there as a fungus also. And all of them, you know, all the berries and the chaga also had a lot of good positive tests when it come to testing the E. silicon. C. illigan is how you say it. And so that brought in triggered a few things. So we actually had a workshop up there, and you can see it on our Facebook page, kind of the tests that we did up there, and like some of the test results are in uh, shoot, I want to say PubMed, or what's that other government uh, article on it. We can post it up later on your website or whatever on your podcast. I'll get you the websites or whatever where people can read about them. But you know, for the digestive systems and stuff like that, and they can take and they can give it like a dye, and then they have this microscope that they put it under, and it will illuminate the different areas of where the chaga is working, and you can look at this one here versus chaga versus, you know, without chaga, and you can see how the things are working, because these little worms are like transparent where you can see through them.
That's really cool. Wow. Yeah, I've heard of the longevity benefits of it, and um, back to just all the compounds that it contains. I just recently learned about uh, inotodiol, like the triterpenoid
Oh
that
yes, yep,
has like
the chaga.
anti-tumor. Like I
Yes,
guess.
and chaga is high in that, and that's kind of you know, we have a couple of tinctures. We have an alcohol-based tincture where, you know, it pulls out more of like we use it, the alcohol tinctures more for the sicker people that are fighting cancers and you know, tumors and things like that, because that's what it has in it. You know, And then also we have an apple cider one too, that people don't want to get away from the alcohol, so we do an alcohol version and non-alcohol version, but them are the tinctures that we produce. We do a quadruple extraction process now. We always start off with water because alcohol kind of smashes your polysaccharides when you're doing the extraction. So we start off with a water, and then we go to a low temperature, and then we do a high temperature, and then we do a high pressure, and then we do ultrasonic frequency extraction. And then we combined all four of them together. We're the only chocolate company on the market that does that with the extractions.
That's amazing. Well, you just answered a few of the questions because people were asking about tinctures and best way to extract. And someone asked about the health differences between water and alcohol extractions. And I think alcohol is what's traditionally been used for a long time, right?
Alcohol has been around for years on extractions, and but I'm starting to see things turn a little bit, but it's finding that right solvent that's going to give you the extraction process, extraction properties that you need out of them. Some of them will only extract with alcohol, but what we're doing, we've taken our alcohol content down to, right around 5%, which, if you take about 3 eyedropperfuls and put it in a 16 glass ounce of water, it's less than a sour orange, content, where you have a moldy orange. It's been the bad batch, of orange before you made your own brew. But yeah, and then we do the one with Bragg's apple cider vinegar with the vegetable glycerin in it for those that want to stay away from alcohol. And it still goes through the same process with the ultrasonic frequencies and stuff like that. Now, like a lot of people, there's a lot of things out on the internet on people if they want to make their own tinctures and stuff. Stay away from, go get in the Everclear and putting it in there and putting it on a jar or whatever like that. Start with your water first. Low temperature, what works. Start with your low temperature. I always like to use, I make mine really strong at that time. I'll use, probably about a half a pound to a gallon and a half of water. And I'll just brew it on low for a few times. And then I'll take it, cap that in the jar, and then go ahead and take them grounds and add you, I always recommend get organic alcohol. You can find it. I like to use a grape organic alcohol, and then take the rest of them grounds, and, you can put them grounds in your alcohol jar, shake it up, and keep that alcohol content down, because you can actually take, and I did this, I know this from experience. We took a bottle of Everclear and we took a bottle of 80 proof, and we just let them soak, shook them up at the same time, both, and you can just see the color difference. Water is your number one solvent. Alcohol is going to pull out some stuff, but it's not going to get everything that you need. Another good way to break a lot of stuff down. You're going to kill some of the enzymes in it, but you're looking for more of the benzoic acids and things like that. Is you could actually do a good pool in a Instant Pot. Take a little Instant Pot, put a couple of cup of grounds in there, and make you a super, super strong chaga tonic. And we did that the other day, playing around with the Instant Pot, and it was like, okay, I had like 4 cups of chaga into a gallon of water, and my friend was here, and it's like I put it on high pressure, and then because he's like trying to get off the coffee, and I'm like, here, try this. my chaga experiment. Yeah, and it was. He's like, wow. I think I overdid it or whatever like that. But you could tell it was really dark or whatever. But, you can place it like that. You can dilute it down, cap it. I have a nitrogen bottle filler now. So, when I'm filling bottles and stuff, I hit it with the nitrogen. So, oxygen kills stuff. You know how that's. I don't have to explain. Most of your listeners will understand that. So, when we're filling our tincture bottles, we have a bottle filler that shoots nitrogen in the bottle, so it keeps it preserved. So
That's awesome. Yeah. So if someone wants to really maximize their purchase, then after they brew their tea and the tea's turning clear and it's not as dark, then they could take out those grounds and they could maybe just store them in the fridge or something for
yeah,
the
yeah, you
alcohol
can store them,
extraction.
freeze them. I always like to freeze them because if uh, when you freeze something, it kind of breaks down more molecules. If you just stick it in the
Mhm.
freezer, it's staying the same. It's a little cooler, but if you freeze something, it's going to crack something, right? So you've actually filled up this little, like taking this water bottle and it's full of water, and you stick it in the freezer, it's going to pop the top. So I'm thinking, why not? And I've read this a long time ago in some lab report where it talked about freezing the substance after you pull it out, and it releases more stuff. So we always like to freeze the chaga after you used it once, and then hopefully it's breaking out more benefits too. So
That's cool. And going back to your story, someone asked, "What happens if you drink too much chaga?"
you'll turn into somebody like me. No, uh, uh, I've not ran into that problem. I did have a lady call me the other day or whatever. She did just a cup of tea or whatever, and she says she had very bad anxiety or whatever. I've never had that phone call again. Again, everybody's body is different. I always say start out with a little bit, 8-ounce cup. If you're very sensitive to things, start with a little less dose and gradually work your way up. I I did that myself, but right now I will probably drink 2 to 3 16 cups a day of chaga. It's not only it's kind of like my water. It depends what I'm doing. If I'm doing the event, and I'm always offering samples and stuff, somebody don't take a sample and I'm drinking myself, so some days I might have a gallon, but it will be based on personal uh how would you say it, your personal body chemistry itself. But I always say start out with an 8-ounce glass every morning. If you don't see uh a change or something that you're looking for, boost up. I would start off with a 16-ounce glass. I always tell everybody when we're doing the large tea bags and I'm doing the show, start your morning out with a 16-ounce glass every morning before you eat, before anything. You will see a change in your body. And everybody that I have done that to with the crock pot version, they always say, that works. At first, they come to me and like, oh, that's such a lot of work or whatever. Well, I can tell you, I can take and make a gallon of chaga faster and have than a person can making 1 or 2 cups of chaga a day. Okay. Say you don't want, say a gallon's too much. Why can't you put it in the freezer? Freeze it. Okay.
Mhm.
Pull your ice cube tray out, throw it in your ice cube tray. There's all different ways to do it. I am a person of saving time and less wasting less energy to prepare something. So make you a gallon, save it, enjoy it for the whole family. It works out to less than $1 a day for everybody in the family to drink a cup of chaga a day. You know that. It's not, people say it's so expensive. Chaga is not that expensive when you get down to the benefits that you're getting out of it. We have no problem going out and putting $8 quart of oil in our car, but we're scared to put 50 cents a day into our body. We have it mixed up. We've been trained different. My dad, he has to go for a surgery on his leg, and he's just crying about the cost of the surgery. But then he has no problem going out and getting to a $60,000 Chevy Silverado, that he drives to the doctor's office when it should be the opposite.
Right. Yeah, his body should be the Silverado, right? It's running
Exactly,
smooth and
exactly, exactly. And
yeah, we've had. Oh, God, sorry.
go ahead. No.
I was gonna say we've had a lot of people here helping build our homestead and building our fences and stuff for goats and stuff, and the drinks that they bring, I mean, I want to help them out because they're drinking rock stars,
You ain't telling
Gatorade.
me I know, right?
You
Right? It's like, oh my God, do you really realize what you're drinking? You know? And then they're laughing at you for drinking chaga. Yeah, right?
Yeah. Well, some are interested, which is the good thing, but I wish people would realize like the real rock star is chaga mushroom tea.
Yeah,
They can throw away the rock star can. They're getting aluminum in there. They're getting synthetic vitamins that are throwing their minerals out of whack. And someone
oh,
actually asked, what minerals does chaga have? And I looked it up, and it's kind of all of them, right?
oh, it does. It has that. What's it called? Geranium,
Mhm,
or whatever like that. And that's very rare.
mhm,
That's very
mhm,
rare. There was a guy with the assay lab. He did assay. It's factually, he does a lot of the assay for the gold mines in Alaska. He is from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Okay. And when showed him the minerals that chaga has in it, he's like pointing to that geranium or whatever how you say it. It's like, I don't believe it's got this in there. He says, we will assay a ton of dirt and get just a micro molecule of that mineral. So, that is pretty impressive, and yes, it has it in there. And the copper and things like that. And that's what makes it all the chaga works together because,
mhm.
you got to have them certain minerals to work with the enzymes. You just can't take an enzyme or make glucan just like taking zinc and copper. If you don't take the right things with the right components to work together, you're just wasting your time.
Yeah, I remember one of my mentors years ago when I was guzzling chocolate tea. He was like, "Oh, he was one of the guys that turned me on to iron overload."
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, it's full of iron. You're just making your problem worse." But then I learned in the last few years, thanks to my podcast and the guests I've had on, like Morley Robbins, that copper balances iron, just like the seesaw of zinc and copper and magnesium and calcium and sodium and
Yeah.
potassium. People don't realize that iron and copper are on a seesaw, and so
Yeah.
if you're eating red meat, you're getting both. It's
Right.
obvious.
Exactly.
Organ meats are better, but yeah, even though chaga has iron, which I speak out against on this podcast quite a bit, it
Uh-huh.
doesn't mean don't consume it because it has the copper with it that helps balance it out. So,
Exactly. And that's where
yeah.
we go back into how chaga is an adaptogen. It's only going to
Mhm,
use what it needs in your body. So if you're high in
mhm,
something, the chaga is the motor, like the computer of your body, and it says, okay, we can use this, and that's the SODs, the adaptogen properties of the chaga. And that's what the adaptogen. There's a good book out I just bought that talking about adaptogens, even though it didn't have very much about chaga because chaga is so new, to the Western world. But it's dated back to in the 1100s in some Chinese medicine or whatever. But and that's why goat's milk, huh?
oh yeah, fresh.
uh, and, and
Yep.
and that's what's just like you were saying about the seesaw effect, the teeter totter effect, and that's kind of what chaga does. Because I've got my blood test done, and 57 years old. I was a professional bull rider when I was younger, and my body's been broke up, and I should have aches and pains, and I am living through my daughter's boyfriends. I could beat half of them running or whatever. Like, it's pretty funny. She's like, I don't think you want to race my dad in front.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've noticed definitely the endurance effects. Like, my favorite time to drink chaga is in the winter because I just notice it kind of warms me up. I feel like it kind of increases my metabolism a bit. And when I'm out there plowing the driveway, or just clearing snow, which is sometimes a 3-day occurrence to clear the home, it just kind of keeps me warm and energized. And I just feel like when I think of chaga, I think I've told you this on the phone. I just feel like this nervous system groundedness. Like it just feels like it stabilizes me.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
Pretty cool effect.
100%. And that's kind of the way I like to explain chaga when I'm doing shows and talking to people and doing interviews, is that when you drink chaga, you're going to feel like that 5-hour energy Superman 5 Red Bull effect, that we seem to be talking about how powerful chaga is, this great thing. No, you're not going to get that effect. What you're going to feel though is that balance effect. You know, it's like you're going to feel like you have that drive to go out and get your mission done, like plowing your driveway, for instance, going out, getting that yard work done. And that's where I benefit from it also too. That's my morning start, is starting with that jog in the morning. And it's like it just gets me going through the day. It gets my mind fresh, and I throw that mushroom power 5 in it or whatever. So there's my lion's mane for my memory, get the cordyceps, get the lungs running in the cordyceps, and that's what I enjoy. And that's what I enjoy about the chaga is I don't feel that like I overdone it effect, of having too much coffee, because it's like you hear people, oh, I think I had too much coffee this morning, or, oh, I should have had another kicker in my coffee or whatever. Well, when you drink chaga, you don't think of things like that because before you know it, half your day is already gone. And it's like, wow, my day has been smooth. It's been a smooth day. I feel energy, look at all the things I've got done. And when I talk to people and I interview them, because that is my returning customers and stuff, at shows and stuff, I always like to get a feedback from what they seen in it, how it made them feel. And they'll basically say, I feel better. I feel better. I feel more complete. There was something missing in my diet. I feel more complete. Let's go back to the endurance part of it. There's they call him Mr. Squat, and that was Fred Hatfield. Have you heard about that story?
I haven't.
Yeah, Fred Hatfield, he was a power lifter during the Olympics, and they did squats, and he kept getting beat by the Russians, and he couldn't figure out, what these Russians, he would train and train and train, and it was always just below the Russians, and so they was competing in the Olympics or whatever, and he's like, "What are you guys doing? You guys, I'm doing everything. What are you eating? I'm taking this and that." And they looked at him and they go, "It's the chaga." And so they sent him some, all right, and he actually broke the world record on the squats. Yeah. And after that happened, and you can look it up, Fred Hatfield, just Google Fred Hatfield and chaga, and a squat record, and he held the world record for squats, and they quit sending him chaga after he broke their record. He's like, no, you're not getting no more of the chaga. But, and not only that, if you turn back and watch some of these Russian athletes, it is pretty well known in their diet. The largest market right now of chaga is actually in Russia. They produce a lot of chaga. They ship a lot all over the world, but it was used traditionally with people in the Olympics, and also the astronauts, going to space. Chaga was part of their diet also. And their body goes through a big change when you're doing that. So talk about endurance. Yes. Chaga is good for endurance. If you're a power lifter, if you're out lifting weights, doing a good workout for your body, put chaga into it. You're going to see an increase, also with the minerals in there and the steroids in there. It's going to help with the lactic acids, where it's going to feel like you've been working out all day and you're not sore like you was to begin with, or you should. You're going to notice something different. It's like, okay, something's going on in my body. Why am not I sore? And that's where it's kind of balancing out the lactic acids and stuff from your workout. My daughter, she won the Miss Arctic Bikini championship, and as an amateur, that was her first event, and chaga was her main thing during her workout. And she went up to girls that's been doing it for years, and she could have got her pro card to do it, and she's like, "Dad, I'm not going to do this too hard on your body. You got to dehydrate yourself, the carbs." And it was just when people look at these bodybuilders and what they go through, my hat's off to them, because they are, of course it's a sport, but I'll tell you what, it's probably one of the most dangerous things you can do to your body.
Yeah. And the little nuances seem to matter. Like any little addition to get a stronger edge. Like you mentioned the Russians, and it's so interesting because I think they were the pioneers with like ozone therapy, and a lot of the original Chaga research was from them, right,
Yes.
for radiation
Yeah.
sickness and cancer. And I think they were
Yeah.
into like light therapy as a performance enhancer.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
so.
You're hitting all the right spots. It's like everybody wants to talk about, these other countries like Russia and China, or whatever, but they don't really realize these were like the pioneers. The Chinese and the Koreans and stuff are the pioneers of ancient medicine. They are what the Western world's turning into now as you're coming into the more natural medicines. We're following their old recipes.
Mm-hmm.
Russia, like the chaga in the Russia, it dates back to the 50s, where it was used in some of the research
Mm-hmm.
and the Cancer Society in Russia.
Yeah, we just watched a documentary. I'm fascinated with like North Korea. I think they're all clones. It's so weird. I think it's like a robot experiment. But
Yes, exactly.
there's no mention of health. I mean, they had a small 2-minute segment on their farming and showed footage of their farming in North Korea. But I always try to find little nuggets of health information in some of these obscure documentaries, but I didn't see anything.
Yeah, and that's cool. Like I talked to you before, that's kind of like my mission right now is trying to travel around the world and finding, in these different countries, because, as we talked about the environment that we live in, how something, what is the chaga in, say the Philippines, or, what do they have is their trade of ancient medicine that is this. And it would be neat to kind of just put all these together and see what we have.
Yeah, I think it was Malaysia that's big into Tongkat Ali, Long Jack. There's like a
Uh-huh.
country I watched a documentary where it's Tongkat Ali beverages and tinctures, and they have like
Right.
50 products that you can buy at every store.
Right. Just like the black rosin you're using from Nepal. What's it called? I have some of that coming straight from the Himalayas. My friend that lives in Nepal. And I
Oh,
was going to
Shilajit. Yeah.
Trilogy. I'm going to send
Yeah.
you some because
Cool.
he's got it. Yeah, his friends went out and harvested it right off the Himalayas for us.
That's
I says,
amazing.
I says, Matt is big into this. I've not done no research, but I says, you need to bring me a couple kilos of this. He's like, oh no, I can do, no problem.
Yeah, because
It's actually stuck in customs right now.
that's happened to me before. Yeah. Because we had a question, suggestions on usage of chaga with other compounds for enhanced benefit. So essentially like synergizers. And to me, Shilajit is one of those, but you were getting into quercetin for a while, right? Too.
Yep.
Quercetin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and and when you start mixing it, always, another thing, just don't go in there and start mixing a whole bunch of stuff and, looking, make sure that your body is kind of used to this a little bit, because the worst thing to do is have a bad experience when you're taking something healthy. Because, I've seen that happen to people. They go in there and then it puts up a red flag to them. And, it's like, oh, I can't do that because it did this to me. Well, how much did you do? So I always like, chaga and reishi works really good hand in hand together. Chaga is like the king, the rishi's like the queen. Yeah, there you go. Because chaga and reishi is kind of like the yin and yang. You know what I mean? The king and the queen. So it's a good balance. Uh, Also, the lion's mane, good for the memory. What you have there in the bag, that's a very good mix. As far as the research I did, and like we talked about, 1 tablespoon. If you're sensitive to stuff, use a half a tablespoon or whatever. I put that in the chaga. It gives me a very good balance. Everybody that uses it that way, it's a very good balance for them. I mean, we go through a lot of that product, and also, that there is the chaga coffee out, but if you're very sensitive to energy stuff, try to avoid the caffeine with the chaga, because the sterols in the chaga, you're going to get it. You're going to, believe me or not, you're going to get energy, and if you load it with, unless you're used to caffeine, don't be adding too much caffeine to your chaga, because we don't want to race that hard up too And
Yeah,
again too, that I like to emphasize on people, I'm not here trying to make no claims. I'm not here trying to, I'm not here to diagnose nothing illnesses or whatever. If you're on a lot of stuff, medications, always consult your doctor. That's the number one thing. We're not here to promise you, you're going to be James Bond or nothing like that. Just take it easy. Enjoy your chaga. You can't go wrong by using it.
I
And
love it.
you know,
Yeah, that's true. My friend Tyler asked this question: is it beneficial to take raw ground chaga powder without extraction? Do you have to brew it first, or
no, that's starting to change around a little bit now. And
okay.
actually, that's what we do with the microblend. The microblend that we have is a powder. It goes through that very fine thing, and there's we have stuff in our bodies, inside our bodies, that are acids that will break down the components of the chaga. At first, it was like, oh, you can't take powdered chaga, but now after doing some of the research and some of the benefits that I've seen with people, that's the only way they consume it. And it's changed their life. So, yes, you can take it as a powder. But I always recommend, when we talked about surface area early, the finer the powder, the higher the more beneficial you're going to be. If you take just a little chunk and swallow it or whatever, you're probably not going to get the benefits as if it was ground up into a fine powder. And we do have the micro blend is the finest powdered chaga on the market. It's like baby powder. Yeah. You can cook with it too. So if you're making breads, if you're doing cookies, it's really fun. There's a lady up here that makes bread with it. That's phenomenal. It's kind of an art, but I always like to, if you buy one of the micro blends and you make a dish with it, send me the recipe. We'll put it on our website, because I want to do a chaga cookbook and put that together. And I'll tell you what, if you're doing a beef stew or some kind of stew or lamb stew, take a cup, take a third of a cup of the grounds and put it in there with the water. I'll tell you what, it enhances the flavor of any stew or any soup that you're cooking. And not only that, it's good and healthy for you too.
that's awesome. You could probably you just made me think you probably cook your rice in it, because I've cooked
Oh, exactly.
the
Most
white
definitely.
rice and bone broth before.
Yeah, most definitely. Throw some in there. Let me know how you do it. Cook something tonight, man.
And someone asked about smoothies. I'm guessing same thing. They can
Same
blend it up.
thing, yes, and it's the micro blend. Added into your smoothies is it's perfect. My daughter did the same thing. She used she made ice cubes out of the chaga, all right, and she used that for a smoothie mix, or she would pour the tea for her liquid. And then I'm going to tell you one thing. I did have a bad experience. Well, it wasn't a bad experience with making a smoothie. Okay. So it was probably about 9 o'clock at night. I was just starting the chocolate business, just kind of get into it. And I took a bunch of berries and chaga. I took the chaga tea with my liquid and I blend them all. I have a Blendtec blender, which I love. And so it was about 9 o'clock at night. I'd say about 8 o'clock and I made this wonderful smoothie, and it was just bomb. Nice fresh fruit and all that. And I'd say probably about 2 o'clock, I'm still laying in bed, tossing and turning, and I'm not sleeping because all them sugars and all that chaga kicked in. And I'll tell you what, I bet you I didn't get an hour's sleep all night. Yeah, so don't be doing those smoothies at night. Make sure you're doing your smoothies before your workout because it did to me. It did keep me up.
Wow. Yeah, I remember a few months ago when I was getting ready for my move and just kind of like calm before the storm, I was doing your chaga tea every night with maple syrup and just
Oh,
two
yeah.
ingredient
Uh-huh.
combo before bed. And
Hmm.
I remember I was getting great sleep, and it would just set me up
Oh,
for
yeah.
a good night's sleep.
Yep.
So,
And that's
so
funny. That's the way chaga works in adaptogen. Some people will put sleep. If your body needs it, that's what it's going to give you. If you need sleep, it's going to help you relax. If you need to wake up the energy, it's going to keep that body balanced and give you what you need.
that's awesome. And I guess the elephant in the room we were talking about before we started recording, oxalates. People are freaking out, and this is a thing now because of all the like the carnivore diet and there's like a really strong anti-plant movement, I guess, to counter like the stupid movie Game Changers. All this
Yeah,
is like
exactly. And I see that all the time. I get that question a lot about the oxalates and chaga, kidney stones, because that's what they cause, a lot of them cause kidney stones. There was an instance, Japanese lady. Yeah, I think she was Japanese or Korean. She was diagnosed with liver cancer or I don't remember what it was. You'd have to get online and look. But she was consuming about 7 grams of chaga 2 to 3 times a day, and it gave her kidney stones. They could not relate that this gave her the kidney stones, but that they said it did. Okay, well, I've been doing this now for 12, 10 years. We're going on 10 years. I've consumed chaga every day, and I'm not talking about an 8-ounce cup every day. My family has done the same. My mom, my dad, hundreds of our customers have done the same, and I have yet ran into any problem where it has caused any problems with isolates. Yeah, it's, I don't know why they keep putting this out there and not really, of course, it might have some background. I don't know how to say it. Is it somebody trying to sabotage, the market on it? Who knows? Are they trying to promote something else to switch over? There was a somebody come to me the other day and was talking about this same thing or whatever, and I says, well, if it's full of isolates, okay, well, it was in a powder, all right. So would the isolates carry over into the tea? And he couldn't answer that question or whatever. So I'm going to send some down, get the tea tested. And like I said, if anybody was going to have isolates or kidney stones, but don't get me wrong, everybody's body's different. I've never ran into that problem, but I see it pop up all the time. Also,
yeah.
And another thing, we're talking about thing. There was a thing that popped up on the internet. I will have to, it's some kind of, it's an Indian extract. It's from some special mushroom. I want to say it's Shyla. I can't remember what it was. I seen it advertising all over the internet, and they're sitting there bashing chaga. All right. So I called this company up, and I'm like, okay. Well, they wouldn't answer no calls. Okay. So I sent them an email, and they got the little robot on the side of the deal. I'm like, okay, you are selling this product. What is this mushroom that you're selling? Well, we can't tell you this because it's protected by Indian law, uh, because we don't want the forest to get raped, but it's only grown in this one area. And it's like if you were selling a product and this online, you need to post on that product what's in that product. You can't just call it some Indian tribal name and say, this is it. They would not give me a name. But they're sitting here talking about how bad chaga is for you with the isolates. So I'll have to send you that link or whatever. You get your input on it. But it was kind of disturbing. You know what I mean? How are you going to sit there bashing something, but you don't have the backing to back up your product? And they're selling a tincture bottle for $150 to $200.
It's a bargain. That's funny. Yeah. Yeah. Same thing with phytates or phytic acid, lectins. This is like the big argument with the raw primal or the carnivore diet is trending the last year. And it's like, because there's these anti-nutrients in plants, just cut out all plants. And it's this really extremist view.
Yeah.
And my thought is, how about we get the liver working, get the kidneys working,
perfect,
like mineral balance,
perfect.
Then the body can handle oxalates in potatoes, which potatoes are a superfood, in my opinion. And all these, plant foods are good for us. It's just don't, I wouldn't say go vegan or go vegetarian, but have them in your diet, have this balanced approach, and your body can handle phytates, which they use as a cancer treatment. I mean,
Yeah.
they isolate phytic acid and sell it to you at the supplement store, and
You're 100% right. If we're eating the right amount of vegetables, the right amount of carbs, the right amount of calories, the right amount of intake, your body will take care of yourself. It's like when we overindulge in something. That's where the problems come in. Anytime you overindulge in something, it's going to cause a problem. Like I've told you before, what's really a really good rule to me is if you want to see people the way a diet works, go to the grocery store. And I've told you this 100 times before. Just go to the grocery store and walk around, push a cart, don't put nothing in it. Watch what's in people's carts and then look at their body. All right. It is a home run. That should educate anybody. All right. When you're looking at the person that's complaining, that's being overweight, and their ankles are swelled up the size of a basketball, but when you look at them at the checkout line, they have all these processed foods. They have all this Diet Coke. They have all the bags of cookies. That should tell you something right there. So if there's any doubt in your mind, and this is for the listeners, about what a diet should look like, go to the shopping cart. And don't get me wrong, there are some people that eat some wild, unhealthy stuff, but they have the genes for it. It all goes back to gene balance too. But, and that is probably 10%. But if you really want to watch the ones that are unhealthy, go look at what's in the charts of the unhealthy people.
That's awesome. Couple more questions for you. Someone asked, or a bunch of people asked about pregnancy and breastfeeding.
Good question.
Benefits or safety. Mm-hmm.
Good question. Very good question. I always, first of all, consult your doctor, if there's any complications or anything like that. My daughter did it through her whole pregnancy, okay, with no complications whatsoever. She did it all through breastfeeding, and she actually, Hunter, my little Chaga Hunter, he's 8 years old now. When she took him off breast milk, she would put the drops in his bottle, or she'd mix his formula or whatever with chaga water, chaga tea or whatever. Completely, very, very mellow kid. He's very analytical as 8 years old. He's actually speaks Chinese and American because they have a Chinese immersion class. So he's very developed, very good, and through her pregnancy, breastfeeding, no problems. There was one thing that after she had the baby or whatever, there was like they come back up. They're like, well, we can't stop the bleeding, but it was something that they missed, inside. But the doctors looked at her and they go, I have never seen an umbilical cord this big feeding a baby. So was that contribute to the chaga? Who knows? But they're like, this baby was getting fed very well. So that was pretty awesome. And she always says it's because of the chaga. It's exactly what she told the doctor. And she did it from, she never even took a break, So even she was drinking it before her pregnancy, and she drank it all the way through her pregnancy and breastfeeding. But again, consult your doctor. I'm not a doctor, so that's my experience. Awesome. That's all I can do is share my experience. All right.
Right. And a lot of people say oxidative stress is at the root cause of disease, or it's the result of iron overload and all the stuff I talk about, oxidative stress. And so a really powerful antioxidant working in multiple ways, like chaga, can help to mitigate the damage caused by all this oxidative stress, whether it be EMFs, heavy metals, iron overload. And that's probably a lot of the benefit. It's just
100%. If I talk to somebody has a very stressful life or whatever, and just can't handle it, I always get them on the chaga. It's like if you're having stress, get on the chaga, because stress kills. People don't understand. Stress is the kicker. First of all, when we're stressed, we don't sleep, and then when we don't sleep, that's where everything goes in. I love the thing you did the other day with the nose thing, because I am a mouth breather. I'm a snorer, so I got to try one of the things or whatever. And and we all stress. If people don't stress, they're not living. So the best way we can cope with that stress is to put something in our diet that will handle it. We deal with life on life terms every day. Not everything's a bed of roses. So we have to put things in our body. If you're stressed out, don't go be drinking no Red Bulls. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Yeah. And if I'm ever underslept, I mean, that's when I really cut out the caffeine or take a break. And yeah, that mouth breathing thing while you sleep, the snoring, that seems to be a big issue. And if people are snoring, then they're not getting sufficient oxygen into the brain, and they're kind of in a sympathetic state a lot of the night. And so,
yeah, they're not in that deep sleep, and
right.
they're not in that deep sleep version. And with a lot of stuff going on, with you know how it is build a business and things like that. You lay in bed and that's your meditate. You try to meditate what you got to do to to improve things and bring better health to the people. Because I'm a lot like you. It's not about what we do for ourselves. It's about what we can do to help our listeners. Because we wouldn't be here right now if we didn't have such a great audience and people listening to us and trying to, not only improving their lives, but improving their own loved ones. I'm sure we have a lot of listeners on here that are trying to, help that grandmother live another, year, see another Christmas, see another birthday, because, nothing's worse than losing a loved one. And if we can put the right things in our body to give us that extra Christmas, and our extra birthday, it matters a lot. Yeah. Memories, pocketbooks can replace, but memories can't.
That's awesome. Well, that's a good point to end on. And yeah, I just really appreciate you coming on, sharing your wisdom, all the stories on Chaga. I'll put all the links below. ArcticChaga.com is your website, right?
You bet. Get on there and use Blackburn on there and get a discount too. So
awesome. Yeah, and you have some cool stuff we didn't talk about. Active, was it hexose correlated compound? It's a long word. AHCC.
AHC is great for the liver. So if you know anybody, toxified livers and stuff like that, it's like a shiitake mushroom type deal. So it's very good. That's what it comes from. It's an extract. It's a very powerhouse. You can Google AHCC and you'll see there is a lot of research done on that. There's probably more research done on that between AHCC and turkey tail. Them are the most documented mushrooms that they've worked on. So as far as PubMed and some of the research, them two are big powerhouses. Hopefully Chaga will make it up there with them. So if the pharmaceutical companies don't kill us first, not kill us, but kill the Chaga. You know what I mean?
Right. And I just noticed you have lion's mane capsules. Is that new or?
Yeah, that's new too, and
wow.
Them are all 40% beta glucans too. So wow. I kind of went over the market of what people are selling when I was in the Asian country over there, and what was being very promoted. And like I said, when they offered me this, I'm like, you got to have something better than this. I want the best. Mm-hmm. And so all of our capsules and everything we sell is the highest quality extract that you can buy. We're not your big, box store, Whole Foods type, we're your small mom pop, but we carry the quality that you deserve.
That's amazing. Yeah. And you have the lion's mane coffee. That's a blend of actual ground coffee and lion's mane?
No, it's a freeze-dried coffee. Everything's organic, it's cool. All natural. It's blended specially for us. And people, if they want it's all a new product. We're playing with it. It's been very popular. There is other coffee blends out there, but it's like, okay, I'm having a foggy morning today. Let's do a little bit of lion's mane with my coffee. Or if, I want to sit home and, not really get out, stress. Let's do a little reishi in coffee today. Or if I'm battling, maybe some we won't get into that word, but let's have some turkey tail, you know what I mean? I don't want to sit here and make no claims, but There's a lot of coffee companies, mushroom companies out there. They take and they blend a whole bunch of mushrooms into one and add coffee to it. I'm more about let's give you a good dose of what you need and add the coffee with it. If you want to do, a blend of each of the other mushrooms, then take a quarter teaspoon of each one of them and put it into it. But say, if you're battling something, that's what kind of gets me with all these companies that do all these different mushroom blends. You're getting we're selling a 7 series mushroom blend capsule. It's 500 milligrams. Okay, then how much mushrooms is actually per mushroom in that 500 capsule? No, if you want stuff to work, you have to take it.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. And all the research is out there. You have some pretty powerful products, like myself, like big C's, some of these diseases that people use substances for, even like HPV, herpes, HIV, turkey tail has been used for all those with great results.
Yeah, exactly. If you have a disease, there's something out there that you can get over, from natural medicine. And mushrooms is taking a turn for the world. I mean, even I just seen the other day where they're trying to legalize psilocybin mushrooms now, or whatever, for people with brain disorders and stuff, which is great. It's great. It's out there for a reason. It was put here for us to use. We are the firm believer in, Mother Nature put it there. Let's keep it as close to Mother Nature and get in the body as we possibly can.
Yeah, when I announced that I was interviewing, whenever I guess you use the word mushroom now, I had a few people ask about microdosing. they thought I was having an episode on, magic mushrooms or mushrooms in general. But,
well, who knows? That might be a next one to get into a little bit.
Paul Stamets style.
I like to keep the brain pretty well focused. Right. Maybe I do need some, but who knows? But or some people already think I'm on them, but no, like I said, Matt, at the end of the day, I can't thank you enough for what you do for this audience. You have a strong audience field. This is just the beginning. I see big things happen for you. A lot of your listeners will message me about the chaga mushrooms. I want to tell them thank you. If I don't get to your questions, sometimes it's only me here putting your orders together. It gets that special touch. Every order gets that special touch. I always like to throw something new in there. But again, Matt, you're awesome. You have a great following, and keep up your great work, man. You're doing great. I really appreciate it. I got to get down and visit you, and we got to go. So I got to bring you up here chaga hunt. I got to bring you up here and let you experience some 60 below zero
and some ice fishing.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I appreciate that, Dennard, and same to you. I think you're doing awesome work, and you're helping a lot of people, and you have amazing products, and just the wave that we're making, I think is doing more than we can imagine to help people improve their lives. So thank you so much. And stick around as I close out the show. Thanks.
All right. Good deal.
Well, I hope after that interview, you're inspired. If you've tried inferior chaga products, to give it another shot, or if you've never had chaga, to try it for the first time. I always feel that increased endurance effect. I tend to be pulled to chaga tea mostly in the winter. I find it just helps keep me warm and keep me energized with less light. And now I'm wondering how much of that is due to the high melanin content in chaga. That probably has a lot to do with it, helping adapt to decreased light exposure. I love the passion that Dennard has for helping people, and what a tool to use to help people with so many different health conditions. It's so broad acting with all of the compounds that it contains, like the triterpenoid inotodiol with its anti-tumor effects. I believe it's ridiculous to be scared of disease, with all of the tools that we have available to us. Unfortunately, we live in an age of information overload where everyone has the answer and all the answers are conflicting, and there's heavy promotion of a ketogenic diet, intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, and that's like the mainstream alternative health. But if you dig deeper, then you'll find a different story, and in fact, it's almost a 180 story. And if you combine that with the proper tools and cut out the wrong supplements that are causing imbalances, then I really believe that there's no condition that can't be reversed. It's just a matter of being consistent and diligent with whatever protocol and tools you choose to use. It's really important to be consistent. Otherwise, just drinking chaga tea once or twice, it can help, but it won't help as much as drinking it daily, especially for several months in a row. And as I said in the interview, I love mixing brewed chaga tea with high quality maple syrup. I just pour the chaga tea into a mug, pour in the maple syrup, and I have a pretty heavy hand with that, maybe 1/4 cup maple syrup, stir it up with a milk frother right in the mug, and it's ready to go. No blender required, super fast to prepare. And if you have a wood stove, then I love just keeping chaga on the wood stove if you're going to have a fire every day, as many people do that live in northern climates like myself. And you can just keep adding water to the brew, and once it loses its dark black color and gets lighter, then you know that it's time to replace the chaga chunks and start a new batch. But check out arcticchaga.com. They have a lot of great products. My favorite is the chaga tea bags. The chunks are fun to work with, but the ground chaga is more practical. And in the little bags, it's really easy because you don't have to wash your pot out. You can just throw in the bags and then remove the bags when they're spent. And one of the most important things I learned about brewing chaga is that you want to expose the most surface area possible to gain access to all the different nutrients, the betulin, the melanin, the inotodiol, and all the other amazing components that are in both the dark and the orange part of the chaga. So the more you grind it up, the more you expose the surface area, the more benefit you'll get from it. I'll put the link below to his store, and if you use the discount code Blackburn, you save 10% on any of his products. And he has a lot more. He has a body butter, chaga lotion, chaga tinctures with alcohol or apple cider vinegar. He has chaga capsules if for whatever reason you don't want to drink the tea, and just really high quality medicinal mushroom products, turkey tail and lion's mane capsules. I think that the chaga is a great tool to use for low energy or just fatigue or weakness feeling, and for immune regulation. Turkey tail as well is great for the immune system, and lion's mane is amazing if you're a writer or if you need to perform mentally. I consume lion's mane mushroom before every single Mitolife radio interview, and I feel like it helps a ton, especially in combination with maple syrup, high quality home ground, home brewed coffee, cream, and shilajit. My brain is just buzzing with that combination. And if you want to support my work in the show, you can go to matt-blackburn.com. I have all my recommended products listed there. I just added a few new products to the site. Blue blocking glasses from my friend Matt Maruka at Raw Optics. And speaking of melanin, he actually uses a synthetic melanin pigment in his blue blocking lenses. I thought that was really awesome. And that episode will actually be out next week, Friday the 16th. And that was a really fun show with Matt. We covered a lot of ground, talked about deuterium, perspectives that normally aren't shared about it, mitochondria, water, light, energy production. That was a really fun interview. So make sure that you don't miss that one. And if you go on my site, you can see the Fritz Day blue blocking glasses. And I still have one of his old pairs of yellow lenses. And blue blocking glasses are amazing to use when you don't have control over your environment. If you're traveling, you're on an airplane, you're driving at night, you're in another building where they're using harsh artificial lights over your head, blocking those frequencies from hitting your eyes really protects the brain. And now I can't travel or leave home without them. I always bring them with me. And the cool thing about yellow lenses is they only block 50% of the blue light. And so your brain can still work and it doesn't make you tired like the red or orange lenses. So it's really good if you do computer work, if you're an office worker, and they even make prescription lenses, which I used to get asked that all the time. Do I know of a blue blocking company that provides prescription lenses? So Raw Optics does. That's pretty cool. And the other product I added to the website is Light Water Scientific Deuterium Depleted Water. Now, this is a really controversial subject that I won't dive completely into in this episode, but I'll just kind of give a summary of my thoughts on it, and it'll kind of be a teaser to next week's episode. I first heard about deuterium several years ago, probably 5 years ago, from Dr. Jack Cruz, and didn't look into it too much because I was still focused on acid rain and the hardness of water, especially high amounts of calcium and iron in the water, which I found a lot of spring water enthusiasts completely overlooked. Or if they did look at that and they brought their TDS meter to the spring and grade it's low, they would discount the acid rain part and the fact that bunker fuel and post-industrial revolution, we have tremendous amounts of sulfuric and nitric acid in the drinking water supply. And if you're on tap water, well water, spring water, or distilled water, then those acids, those corrosive acids, are still in the water. But anything related to water, I've always been fascinated by, and I think that it's more important than food. And I believe that the anti-water movement, there are people saying that you don't want to drink as much water because you'll pee out your electrolytes or you'll decrease the metabolic water that your mitochondria make. I believe a lot of that's coming from people not knowing what real water is, and specifically not understanding the bicarbonate ion and bicarbonate electrolyte salts and how they differ from chloride form of minerals. So I'm still carrying a bottle of water with me, or multiple, when I leave the house. I believe it's ridiculous not to, given that we dehydrate with every breath, and non-native electromagnetic fields dehydrate us and microwave us, and numerous other factors that are dehydrating us. I think it's ridiculous to think that we can get all of our water from food and juices. All of that said, deuterium is not a toxin. It's found throughout the universe and in water all over the planet. It just so happens that the amount of it is higher than it used to be, and it's called heavy hydrogen. So it's one isotope of hydrogen. And an easy way to think of it is it's protium's evil twin. So it looks like hydrogen and acts like hydrogen, but it's twice as heavy and it's twice the size. And we use hydrogen in our electron chain transport when we're generating energy, and we use it in the spinning nanomotor called the ATPase when we're creating adenosine triphosphate. But because there's so many protons going through the system, and those protons are basically hydrogen, that means that that motor is encountering deuterium about every 5 seconds. And as it turns out, it breaks that motor. So I was really skeptical about this for many years, and someone that I respect, Dr. Tom Cowan, has been talking about it quite a bit, and he's studied the work of Dr. Gerald Pollack and Mei-Wan Ho and Gilbert Ling, real pioneers in the world of water research. And over the years, I've experimented with so many different things, putting crystals in my water, putting discs under the water that supposedly emit tachyon particles, vortexing it, putting it in different vessels and putting that in the sun, like putting water into Myron glass, which blocks all wavelengths of light except for IR and UV, and trying all these different experiments with water. And it's really fun and fascinating to me that we're still learning things about water. And I feel like acid rain is still not talked about enough. That's very evident when I see how many people are still drinking spring water in the natural health community. I see that they don't have an understanding of bunker fuel or sulfuric and nitric acids and what they do in the human body. So I'm trying to wrap up this deuterium talk, but I'm realizing I might have to have an entire solo episode all about it and my thoughts on it. But I wanted to give all that background and context because there are some people who are saying, oh, now you're just promoting this super expensive water, and people don't understand that you're not supposed to drink it straight. And so this company, Light Water, that I added to my website, it's designed to dilute your normal drinking water. And so there are a ton of bottled deuterium depleted water companies out there right now selling 25 ppm, 50 ppm of deuterium depleted water. But the cool thing about Light Water is it's 5 or 10 parts per million deuterium. So they found a way to reduce it by 95 to 97%. And it's a really expensive process, and it's shipped from overseas. So that's two reasons why the price is higher. It's a very energy intensive process to create this stuff. And so it's a whole rabbit hole. You can go as deep as you want into researching it. I would recommend just ignoring the keto, caloric restriction, and intermittent fasting sales pitch with the deuterium message, because those three things will wreck your metabolism. But I think potentially as a cleanse, and I'm doing a before and after, they have a saliva and a breath test, and I'm using two different companies to correlate and see if it's accurate. And I really just want to quantify if this is a real thing, which according to a lot of people that I've talked to, it is. But if you want to experiment with me, it's on my website. I have my thoughts there on the bottom. Once again, you don't drink it straight, because then it would be like $20 a bottle or something ridiculous. You're meant to dilute it 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 with your regular drinking water, and you're lowering the deuterium content of your drinking water overall, which will dilute deuterium in your body. And you're supposed to do it for roughly 2 to 3 months, and then get another test and see where you're at. I'll definitely talk to future guests about this. I'd love to get people's perspectives, like Adam Bergstrom and Morley Robbins, who I'm sure are both very skeptical about this subject. I definitely think there's more to the story than is being shared in the mainstream health community about deuterium, but I think that the water can be a great cleanse, way better than doing green vegetable juices like celery juice or something like that. This is an actual cleanse that supports your mitochondrial health. And maybe it has a benefit even short term if you lower your deuterium levels and then they go back up, because that is an argument that people make against this water. They say, oh, temporarily reducing your levels does nothing if they come back up. But how do we know that? So I'm excited to experiment with it. And if you want to join me, I'll put the link below, or you can check it out on my website. And you can also go to mitolife.co to check out the Mitolife products. I just got the desiccated oyster extract back in stock. Still a limited supply, but there's a good amount if you've been waiting to try that. That's a great source of bioavailable copper. And up here in North Idaho, we don't have access to good oysters. And so the desiccated capsules is something that I take advantage of. One bottle of oyster extract is actually the equivalent of 13 pounds of fresh oyster meat. So you're getting iodine, B12, zinc, selenium, copper, all in the perfect forms and ratios. And check out the Mitolife Academy on YouTube if you haven't. I put up 4 private videos a month of different biohacking protocols and health tools that I like to use. And there's also a monthly Q&A where if you're a member, you can ask me unlimited questions there once a month. So thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing this show with your friends. See you next Friday. Stay supercharged.